Let's start. So today we'll continue our discussions about beta-lactamases, specifically um, beta-lactam antibiotics, that is cephalosporins. Okay, yesterday we did what are penicillins. Today we'll do what is cephalosporins, and hopefully we'll finish up carbapenems and monobactams as well. Now I'll show you an image for the classification of cephalosporins. See, cephalosporins are basically divided into 5 different generations. Now, their classification is based on different generations. As such, it can even be divided into parenteral and oral in each generation. Okay, so first generation was found earlier, and fifth generation is the latest. That is how the progression goes. So as what you call the drugs keep on increasing, it becomes more specific in the sense that first generation were made more broad spectrum in a way, whereas fifth generation are made more specific for let's suppose it is made for MRSA, okay, Streptococcus pneumoniae, MRSA, Pseudomonas, and for specific bacteria fifth generation were made, and there are several different types amongst them. Now in parenteral and oral, you will find in each of these class some of the drugs also fall under oral and parenteral, okay, especially something like cefuroxime that can be both oral and parenteral and things like that. So we'll be discussing some of the drugs from each of these generations, and I'll highlight what are the important top points in each generation, okay, with 1 or 2 examples. Now you'll have to memorize at least two drugs from 1 or 2 drugs from each generation, okay, parenteral and oral. So let's suppose we are talking about first generation. So parenteral drugs will be cefazolin and cefalotin, whereas oral will be cephalexin and cefadroxil. वैसा ही हर एक generation में से एक या दो. Second generation में से cefuroxime is parenteral and cefaclor is oral, and things like that. You go all the way up to fifth generation. Okay. Now coming to first generation cephalosporins, first gen cephalosporins. First gen cephalosporins will have cefazolin. Cefazolin is parenteral, okay, and cephalexin. I'll give one example for oral and one example for parenteral. ठीक है? At least इतने तो याद रखना पड़ेगा exam point of view से. Now these drugs, one second, people are trying to come in. Right. Now, as I was telling you, first gen cephalosporins, these are very, very good against gram-positive organisms. Okay, cephalotin specifically. So you have cephalotin. Cephalotin is also another parenteral cephalosporin. Cephalotin is resistant to penicillinase. So penicillinase resistant penicillins के वैसा use कर सकते हैं इसको. Okay, because they have a very similar structure to penicillins, there will be some cross resistance as well sometimes, wherein some bacteria which are resistant to penicillins, they might be resistant to cephalosporins as well, but cephalotin will not have that problem. Yeah, another thing about the penicillins that I forgot to tell you before this thing, there are some nursing implications which are to be considered in penicillins. Okay, those nursing implications will be that one is do not give penicillin without asking for history of allergy. You have to make sure that the patient does not have a history of allergy before giving penicillin. And if you are unsure, perform a skin test. Okay, take 1 or 2 units of penicillins and inject it intradermally. You will be able to see a small indentation or small reddish reaction within half an hour. Specifically, if a patient is about, let's suppose it is an outpatient who is asking for an injection of penicillin, in such patients, after giving the injection, tell them to wait for 30 minutes. Okay, because in case they are having a allergic reaction, you can immediately administer adrenaline. Other than that, there is no specific reason. You have to make sure that the patient might not know that they are allergic. Okay, after you give the first dose, they might have a severe allergic reaction. So you have to make sure that you have adrenaline ready and you make the patient wait for a little while before they run away. Now, a patient allergic to penicillins might also be allergic to cephalosporin. So you have to keep that in mind. If a patient has a history of allergy to penicillins, they might be allergic to cephalosporins as well. It is rare, but it can happen. Keep adrenaline ready. But as such, like penicillins, how we can perform an intradermal test and check for sensitivity or hypersensitivity, you cannot do that for cephalosporins. Cephalosporins will not respond in that same way. So the only option you can do is, if you are giving cephalosporins, tell the patient to wait and keep adrenaline ready. Okay, so those are some of the nursing implications of your penicillins. Now coming back to first generation cephalosporins, as I was telling you, cephalotin is a cephalosporin that is resistant to penicillinase. Okay, it can be used in staphylococcal infections because of that. Cefazolin specifically, it has a very long T half, because and its tissue penetrability is very good, so it is given for surgical prophylaxis. Okay, now I'm not sure whether you've heard about it or not, but there are certain antibiotics that are given for surgery, specific antibiotics that are meant only for surgery. They are called antibiotics for surgical prophylaxis. Okay, now you will not know whether an infection will occur or not during a surgery. So prophylactically, you will give certain antibiotics. One such antibiotic is cefazolin, because it has long T half. Even if you give one dose, it will last you for a long period of time. So cefazolin used for surgical prophylaxis due to long T half. Okay. Another thing is that it has very good penetrability in tissues. Cefazolin has very good tissue penetrability. As such, cephalosporins will affect streptococci, staphylococci, E. coli, Klebsiella. All of them are inhibited. Okay, cephalexin can be used orally, and it is specifically used for minor infections like abscesses, or it can also be used for cellulitis. All right. Now that is about first gen. Coming to second generation cephalosporins, your main drugs in this will be cefuroxime, which is parenteral, and we have cefaclor. This is oral. Now in parenteral, you will also have cefotitan and cefoxitin. Okay, those two are specifically very good for anti-anaerobic. Hey guys, sorry, I just lost connectivity just like in between. 1 second. The app stopped as such. Right. So as I was telling you about second gen cephalosporins. Okay. We have cefuroxime and cefaclor. Cefuroxime being parenteral and cefaclor being oral. Now, along with cefuroxime, you have other parenteral drugs in second generation, which are cefotitan and cefoxitin. Okay. These two are specifically very good against anaerobic bacteria. Okay, specifically something like Bacteroides fragilis. Okay, cefoxitin and cefotitan are very good in bacteroides infections, and you can also use them in mixed infection like intra-abdominal infections में बहुत अच्छे हैं cefotitan and cefoxitin. As such, second gen and cephalosporins are good against gram-negative bacteria. First gen were good against gram positive. Second gen were good against are good against second gen, gram negative bacteria. Okay, gram negative bacteria something like Haemophilus influenza, E. coli, Proteus, Klebsiella, ये पूरों के अगेंस्ट अच्छा काम करते हैं. ठीक है. Cefuroxime is resistant to beta lactamases as well. So cefuroxime does not need. Now yesterday when we were discussing about penicillins, I told you one particular class of drug called beta lactamase inhibitors. Your sulbactam, avibactam, tazobactam, upure, clavulanic acid. Those are beta lactam inhibitors. I told you what beta lactam is, beta lactamase is, and it can destroy your penicillins. Okay, to stop that, you will give beta lactamase inhibitors. Now, those beta lactamase enzymes that are produced by bacteria, they can act on cephalosporins as well. Okay, they can destroy cephalosporins as well. Because of which, because beta lactam ring will be present in this as well. That is why they are all called beta lactam antibiotics. Cephalosporins के अंदर भी beta lactam ring रहती. Because of which some cephalosporins will require you to give a beta lactamase inhibitor with it. Okay, but cefuroxime is one drug that does not require a beta lactamase inhibitor because it is resistant to beta lactamase and it has very good CSF concentration, so it can be used for meningitis. Cefuroxime. Okay. Cefotetan and cefoxetine are used in anaerobic bacteria as well as intra-abdominal infections, mixed bacteria रहा जब. Then we have third generation. Third generation में आता आपका mainly cefotaxime. Cefotaxime is parenteral. We have um, ceftriaxone. Okay. You have cefodoxime, cefoperazone. Cefoperazone is also pretty common. Cefoperazone. Okay. All of these are parenteral, meaning given IV, and you have one oral drug which is cefixime. Okay. This fellow is oral. Now, as such, third generation cephalosporins are much more resistant to beta lactamases and they have very good activity against gram negative organisms, especially Citrobacter, Serratia, Enterobacteriaceae, Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Pseudomonas is a very dangerous bacteria. Okay, so these are very, very good in case of Pseudomonas infection. Also, gonorrhea, Neisseria gonorrhea. You can also use it in Haemophilus influenza, especially Haemophilus influenza strain that can produce beta lactamases. Okay, there is one strain of Haemophilus influenza which can produce beta lactamase enzyme, which can, for which you'll have to give a beta lactamase inhibitor as such if you use other cephalosporins. But if you use third gen, you can avoid that. Okay, they have weak activity against gram positive cocci though. Third gen cephalosporins all as such will have weak activity against gram positive cocci. So it will also cross, all of these can also cause BBB. So they can be used in meningitis. Ceftriaxone specifically has a very long T half. Okay, you can give it OD. So this fellow has a long T half, can be given OD once a day. Okay, single dose will be enough. It is mainly excreted through your biliary tract and you do not need a dose adjustment for renal insufficiency. Okay, even if it is because it is getting excreted through biliary tract, you do not need to change the dose for renal insufficiency. As such, cephalosporins, some cephalosporins have been indicated to shown nephrotoxicity. That is why in people who have renal insufficiency or in people who are on other nephrotoxic drugs like aminoglycosides, उन लोगों के अंदर cephalosporins देख के देना. Okay, because cephalosporins inherently can cause a little bit of nephrotoxicity except ceftriaxone, because ceftriaxone is using a different route for excretion. It is using the biliary route. Ceftazidime बोल के एक और drug रहता. Ceftazidime is a parenteral third generation cephalosporin that is very, very helpful against Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Okay. Generally, third generation cephalosporins can be life saving in case of serious gram negative infections. Okay. There will be certain gram negative infections which are resistant to aminoglycosides. Aminoglycoside is another type of antibiotic which we'll study about. But in some cases, there will be certain bacteria, certain strains of gram negative bacteria which are resistant to aminoglycosides. In them, third generation cephalosporins will work very well. Okay. So useful in serious gram negative infections which are resistant to aminoglycosides. Okay. Aminoglycosides is another drug that can cause nephrotoxicity, so be careful when you're combining these drugs. Now coming to fourth generation cephalosporins. Fourth generation cephalosporins में आता आपका, there is no exactly oral drugs नहीं है इसमें, only parenteral. Okay, you have cefepime and cefpirone. Both of these are parenteral. Okay, Right. So about cefepime and cefpirom, these drugs they can be used against a variety of gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. Okay, especially streptococci, staphylococci, meningococci. Uh, they are very good. Cefepime specifically attains very good CSF levels, so you can give it in case of meningitis. Whereas cefpirom achieves very good tissue penetrability, so you can give it in systemic infections as such. Okay, they are also helpful in case of Haemophilus influenza or Pseudomonas aeruginosa infection, and they are more resistant to beta lactamases than the previous classes. So see, another thing is that as time keeps on going by, you will develop, or there will be development of bacteria who are resistant to cephalosporins as well, or to put it in another way, they will start producing even stronger beta lactamases. Okay, that is another reason why antibiotic resistance is so common. Yeah, Rusia, do you have a doubt? Microphone on है? Okay, guess that was a mistake. So as I was telling you, these drugs, see what happens is, as evolution takes place, obviously bacteria will start attaining resistance. Okay, over time bacteria start attaining resistance, and let's suppose there is a beta lactamase producing bacteria which was initially present, and you are starting to use antibiotics against it. Over time what happens is, one or the other strain of that same bacteria will start producing a stronger form of beta lactamase, for which your traditional antibiotics will not work, even if they were initially beta lactamase resistant. Because the bacteria has become advanced, you will have to use a different strain of beta lactamase resistant antibacterials. Okay, that is why cefepime and cefpirom are better at resisting beta lactamase than second gen, first gen, and third gen. All right. Now, both of these drugs, cefepime and cefpirom, are excreted through kidneys. So, some important point about them is, cefepime achieves good CSF penetration or good CSF level. Okay? So, it can be used in meningitis, or it can be used in specific infections of your brain or neuronal system as such. And cefpirom has good tissue penetrability. ठीक है. So if you're trying to treat abscesses, ulcers, things like that, तो लोगों के अंदर सेफ्पिरोम अच्छा काम आता. Now, fourth generation, these two are very good in case of septicemia as well. If a patient is having septicemia, sepsis basically, in them it is very good. And nosocomial infections. Nosocomial infections are those infections that a patient acquires in the hospital. Okay, once the patient has come for treatment, after 2 or 3 days, let's suppose they are getting infected by a bacteria, that is when it is a nosocomial infection. Or serious infections of skin, respiratory tract, urinary tract, or even infections in immunocompromised patients. In all of them, fourth generation cephalosporins are very good. Now, coming to the last class of cephalosporins, these are relatively new. Okay, fifth generation. You have three main drugs in this. You have ceftolozane, ceftobiprole, and you have ceftaroline. Okay, ceftolozane. Now, these three were specifically made for methicillin resistant staphylococcus. There was one very troublesome bacteria. There is one very troublesome bacteria called methicillin resistant staphylococcus aureus. You will have both MSSA and MRSA. I'm sure you must have read about it in microbiology, but MSSA is methicillin susceptible, meaning methicillin, the semi-synthetic what do you call penicillins that were made, they will work against it, and there will be strains of staphylococcus aureus which are resistant to it. MRSA बोलते हैं उसको. MRSA is a very dangerous bacteria. MRSA, VRSA, all of them are very dangerous. So against MRSA, ceftobiprole is very, very good. Okay, especially MRSA and penicillin resistant streptococcus pneumoniae, against which fifth generation antibiotics are very good. ठीक है, ceftaroline specifically can be given as what you call IV. It is given IV over 1 hour. ठीक है, you cannot rush it because it can cause thrombophlebitis and all of that. So you generally give 600 mg of the drug slowly over an hour, and you can give it BD. Okay, 2 times a day, ceftaroline. These also have very good effects on Pseudomonas. All right, especially resistant Pseudomonas, resistant to other antibiotics. Now, specific adverse effects related to all cephalosporins ADR will be there will be hypersensitivity, but not as much as penicillins. Hypersensitivity. Okay. Other than that, they can cause diarrhea. They can cause nephrotoxicity. They can hypersensitivity in the sense hypersensitive reactions like rashes, fever, serum sickness. Rarely they will cause anaphylaxis. Okay, that is why you need to keep adrenaline ready. Now, this will only occur in 20% of patients allergic to penicillin. They will show cross reactivity. So, out of 100 patients who are resistant, who are sensitive to or hypersensitive to penicillins, among them, generally 20% will show cross reactivity to cephalosporins, meaning they are sensitive to both penicillins and cephalosporins. 80% of the people who show penicillin resistance or penicillin hypersensitivity, they will not react to cephalosporins. There is no reliable skin test for this though. You'll have to keep adrenaline ready in case the patient is showing that they have, if the patient tells that they have history of PCN allergy, penicillins को PCN बोलते हैं. You have to keep adrenaline ready because 1 in 5 patients might have this. 20% बोले तो. It can also cause mild nephrotoxicity. All of these, especially in case if you are giving it with other nephrotoxic agents. Avoid giving it with other nephrotoxic agents. It can cause diarrhea. It can lead to bleeding, specifically because it decreases prothrombin time, decreases prothrombin level, and increases prothrombin time. Sorry, it will cause bleeding basically. Okay, it'll cause diarrhea, and it can decrease WBC count. It is seen in some patients that WBC count will decrease. It can also cause pain at the site of infection, pain at the site of injection. Wherever you are injecting, it can lead to pain, sometimes thrombophlebitis as well. Okay, swelling of that particular blood vessel wherever you are giving it. All right, so this is about cephalosporins. If you have doubts, please let me know, or else we'll move into the other categories. Mechanism of action is the same as penicillins. Okay, they will interfere with cell wall formation by what you call inhibiting or degrading its cell wall. It will basically destroy or inhibit the production of peptidoglycan, because of which cell wall will become very weak and the bacteria will undergo lysis. Okay, all beta lactamases will have the same mechanism of action. Okay, now coming to the next class, carbapenems. Carbapenems क्या है? You have certain drugs. Okay, you have imipenem, doripenem, meropenem. Meropenem is very common. I'm sure you must have seen it somewhere or the other. Ertapenem and pharopenem. Okay, 5 examples. बस है. The main important or common ones that you see are meropenem, imipenem, and you will see ertapenem also. Doripenem and pharopenem are not used as much, but you will see them in specific cases. They are also very helpful. Now, carbapenems are good in case of gram-positive and gram-negative infections, both. They are also very helpful in case of anaerobic infections. So your streptococci, staphylococci, enterococci, listeria, pseudomonas, and bacteria fragilis, all of them respond to, or carbapenems are able to inhibit the function of all of them. Okay, they are able to kill those bacteria. Again, they will work by the same way, by cell wall synthesis inhibition, by breaking down peptidoglycan. Imipenem specifically cannot be absorbed orally. Okay, so we'll talk about some ones. Imipenem, this fellow cannot be absorbed orally. You have to administer it IV. Generally IV dose is around 250 to 500 mg given every 6 to 8 hours, meaning you can give it TID to QID. So the dose is 250 to 500 mg IV, TID or QID. ठीक है, not absorbed orally. Another problem with imipenem is that in circulation, whenever it comes across renal tissue, your renal tubules will be able to produce one particular type of enzyme. That enzyme is called dehydropeptidase. Okay? What happens is whenever this enzyme is secreted, imipenem gets inactivated. Normally in your body itself, there is one particular enzyme called dehydropeptidase that is produced by renal tubules. Whenever imipenem is coming in contact with this enzyme, whenever vertical as circulation occurs, it will come across this enzyme, and whenever it comes across this enzyme, it will get inhibited. Okay, so just write it here: dehydropeptidase or dehydropeptidases from renal tubules inhibit or inactivate imipenem. Because of this, you'll have to give another type of drug with this, like beta lactamase inhibitor दिए थे, वैसा dehydropeptidase inhibitor दिए थे. So something called dehydropeptidase inhibitor, like cilastatin, ठीक है, is always given with imipenem. ठीक है, always you will find the combination of cilastatin and imipenem being given together. Now as such, you can find other drugs as well, which are what do you call better than imipenem. If you give cilastatin with imipenem, the duration of action of imipenem will get prolonged, because see, dehydropeptidase is degenerating or it is inactivating imipenem. So the total duration of action, the duration for which imipenem will work, will decrease. If you do not give a dehydropeptidase inhibitor, if you give it with cilastatin, it will work for a slightly longer amount of time. It will prolong its T half. You have other drugs, something like meropenem. Meropenem will not get destroyed by renal dehydropeptidases. And see, imipenem has another disadvantage. If you give a very high dose of imipenem, it can cause seizures. Okay? There is a low risk of seizure, but it can occur with high doses. Okay? High doses of imipenem can precipitate a seizure. Okay? This can be avoided by simply giving meropenem. Meropenem is a drug that is similar to imipenem, but it will not have the same disadvantages. It will the risk of seizure is much less than imipenem, and it will not get destroyed by dehydropeptidases. So you can give it without cilastatin. Okay, as such, these drugs, imipenem specifically, can be given in UTI. It can be given in respiratory or skin infections. You can give it in bone infections, soft tissue infections, gynecological infections, or you can give it in intra-abdominal infections. Okay, all of these bacteria which are causing these particular diseases can be treated using imipenem. Same for meropenem. Meropenem has the same indications as imipenem, but it is what do you call slightly better in that it will not have the disadvantages which imipenem has. So that is about carbapenems. Then we have monobactams. So monobactams में एक particular drug है आप लोगों के syllabus में, which is aztreonam. Okay, aztreonam is a monocyclic beta lactam. इसको monobactams इसलिए बोलते हैं because they only have a single ring. ठीक है, other monobactams will have several rings of beta lactam. ठीक है, so that is why they are called beta lactamases. They will have a beta lactam ring in it, in their structure. Monobactams are structures which will only have a single ring. Your aztreonam is an example. It is very active against gram-negative bacilli, especially Pseudomonas aeruginosa, but ineffective against gram-positive and anaerobes. Active against gram-negative, including Pseudomonas aeruginosa, but ineffective against gram positive and gram positive organisms as well as anaerobes. Plus, once again, plus anaerobes. Okay, both of them will not react to aztreonam. As such, this drug can be given parenterally. It is given parenterally. You give 1 to 2 grams every 6 to 8 hours. So normal dose is 1 to 2 grams TID or QID. Okay. The only specific adverse effects that has been reported with aztreonam is skin rashes. Okay, they're not used as often aztreonam, but you can use them. They are some better drugs as well. Aztreonam is given in nosocomial infections, gram negative organisms that cause hospital infections. उन लोगों के अंदर aztreonam बहुत अच्छा use करते हैं. So with that we have completed our beta lactams, beta lactam antibiotics. I hope you understood beta lactam antibiotics. Please make sure that you memorize, especially in case of cephalosporins, you memorize 2 examples, one each from parenteral and oral of all the 5 generations. 4th and 5th generation will not have oral, so memorize 2 of parenterals. Okay, chalo, ठीक है.